In the golden halls of Valamir, Queen Isolde was worshipped like a goddess, graceful, radiant, and adored by her people. But beneath her silken robes and jeweled crown lived a woman tormented by betrayal. King Aldric, her husband, had long ceased to love her. His heart now belonged to a younger courtesan, whose laughter echoed through the palace corridors like a cruel melody. Night after night, Isolde lay awake in a bed that had grown colder than the stone walls around her. Her pride, once her crown, had turned into a dagger piercing her heart. Love had withered, only vengeance bloomed. She called upon the royal apothecary, a man infatuated with her beauty, and whispered to him a recipe of death. Together they brewed a potion so deadly that even a single drop could stop a man's heart. At the royal feast, Isolde lifted a golden goblet. "To love everlasting," she said sweetly, pressing her crimson lips to the king's cheek before handing him the cup. Moments later, Aldric's face turned pale as snow. He collapsed before his courtiers, gasping for breath. The queen screamed and wept, convincing all of her innocence. But the apothecary, who knew the truth, soon met a similar fate, found lifeless in his chambers, with a wine cup still in hand. No one dared question her again. From that day, every man who kissed Queen Isolde felt a flicker of fear, for her lips were no longer a symbol of affection, but a curse whispered across generations as the queen's kiss of death. In the lavish courts of Lady Alara's beauty was both a blessing and a curse. Her emerald eyes captured the heart of Lord Marcellus, a powerful noble, already bound by marriage to the cunning Lady Chalain. Their forbidden affair began with stolen glances, secret letters, and moonlit rendezvous behind the palace gardens. But secrets in noble courts never stay buried for long. When Lady Chalain uncovered the truth, her fury burned with icy precision. She did not scream nor strike, Chalain invited Alara to a private supper under the guise of reconciliation. The night was warm, filled with laughter, sweet music, and spiced wine. But the goblet in Alara's hand shimmered faintly, touched by the essence of deadly night. By dawn, Alara's body was found beside the fountain, her beauty turned pale as marble. Marcellus, accused of poisoning his mistress, was arrested and sentenced to death. As his body swung from the gallows, Chalain stood in the crowd, a faint smile curling her lips beneath her veil. Months later, Chalain grew ill, the same symptoms that had taken Alara. Some said she accidentally drank from the same bottle. Others whispered that guilt had driven her to it. Either way, the tale lived on in dark songs, sung by wandering minstrels. A love so fiery, it consumed itself. In the end, the court remembered not their names, but the warning their story carried. When passion turns to poison, no heart survives. Duke Renard of Orville was a man of charm and legend, admired by his people, feared by his rivals, and loved by one woman he could never publicly claim, Seraphina, his mistress. She was the daughter of a fallen knight, clever and striking, the kind of woman who could bring a kingdom to ruin with a smile. Their love was fierce, born from secrecy and stolen nights. But the Duchess, Eleanor, discovered everything. Her pride, wounded by betrayal, transformed into venom. She sought vengeance, not through sword or scandal, but through alchemy, with the help of a wandering sorcerer. She crafted a gift, a golden pendant laced with a toxin that seeped slowly through the skin. When Seraphina received it from an anonymous admirer, she wore it proudly, never suspecting its curse. Over weeks, her health declined. Her lips lost color. Her voice faded. The Duke watched helplessly as she withered before his eyes. When he uncovered the truth, madness consumed him. He forced his wife to wear the same pendant, then drank poison himself to join his dying lover. The three were found lifeless, the Duchess clutching her necklace, the Duke and Seraphina, hand in hand. Their tale became a haunting warning, sung through centuries, that love, once pure, can become the deadliest poison of all. The kingdom of Dravement was ruled by King Roland, a man of ambition and charm, yet his heart wandered far from the throne. Queen Amara, his wife, was beautiful but cold, hardened by years of neglect. When she discovered his secret affair with Lady Viola, her heart broke, then hardened into iron. The queen invited Viola to the palace, feigning friendship. She smiled sweetly, praised her beauty, and gifted her a bottle of honeyed wine to calm restless nights. But beneath the sweetness lurked powdered glass, fine as dust and sharper than any blade. When Viola drank it, her scream echoed through the night. She died, clutching her throat, her blood mixing with spilled wine. King Roland, heartbroken, became a ghost of himself, wandering the castle halls in madness. One night, a goblet of that same cursed wine appeared on his table. By morning, he too was dead, poisoned by his own despair. The queen, finally alone on the throne, began to see visions, Viola's pale face in every mirror, her laughter echoing in empty corridors. One night, she drank from the same goblet, ending her torment. 3 graves stood side by side, the king, his mistress, and his queen. The court whispered that love, once twisted by betrayal, could kill more surely than any sword. Count Lucien of Averell was known across France as a poet whose words could melt hearts. Yet his greatest poem was born not from joy, but from sin. His muse, Lady Morale, was the wife of his own brother, Lord Henry. What began as admiration became obsession, and what began as stolen glances became forbidden nights of passion. When Henry discovered their affair, he challenged Lucien to a duel at dawn. But Lucien, fearing death, chose a coward's path. He invited Henry to dine the night before, serving wine infused with aconite, a poison both silent and swift. As Henry drank, his eyes filled with betrayal, and he cursed Lucien with his dying breath. But fate is cruel. The same poisoned wine was later shared by Miralelle, unaware of its origin. By the next night, she too fell ill. As she lay dying in his arms, Lucien was overcome with horror. In his despair, he wrote his final poem, using her blood as ink, verses of guilt, desire, and eternal damnation. When servants found them, Lucien had taken his own life beside her body, his hand clutching the crimson-stained parchment. For centuries, travelers spoke of their love, a passion so fierce it destroyed itself. The poem, known as a love written in blood, was said to curse any who dared read it aloud. Baroness Evelyn of Thornvale was a woman of unmatched charm, gentle voice, graceful hands, and eyes that could tame even the fiercest man. But beneath her beauty lay a storm. She was trapped in a loveless marriage and secretly desired King Alaric, a ruler as ruthless as he was handsome.
Their affair began in secrecy, hidden behind silk curtains and whispers in candlelight.
The king promised her power and freedom, but when her usefulness waned, he turned away. Evelyn's heart, once burning with love, blackened with hate. In her despair, she turned to an herbalist, rumored to serve both angels and devils. There, she purchased a vial of emerald green poison called Queen's Mercy, silent, scentless, and swift. At a royal feast, she approached the king with a goblet of wine. "To the love that defied the gods," she said softly. The king smiled, unaware his last drink had already sealed his fate. Minutes later, he collapsed, his veins darkening before the horrified court. Evelyn was never tried, nor punished. She vanished that same night, leaving behind only the faint scent of jasmine in her empty chamber. Some say she became a nun.
Others whisper that she still walks the night, haunting the throne she helped to empty.
Her name became legend, the Baroness who poisoned her king. Lady Clarice of Allendale had been a widow since her 21st year. Her husband, Lord Geoffrey, died mysteriously one stormy night, though whispers said she had a hand in it. For years she lived in mourning, veiled in black, haunting the castle halls like a shadow. Then came Sir Adrian, a knight sent by the crown to guard her estate. He was young, brave, and dangerously charming. Clarice found herself drawn to him, to his laughter, his courage, his defiance.
Their nights became filled with stolen kisses, their love both passionate and perilous.
But the past does not die.
One night, Adrian discovered an old diary hidden in Clarice's chambers, a confession written by her own hand.
It told how she had poisoned her husband with belladonna, hidden in a cup of spiced wine. Shocked, and terrified, Adrian confronted her. Clarice smiled sadly. "Would you betray me too?"
she whispered. She poured him wine, her hands trembling.
He hesitated, then drank for love or for weakness. None could tell.
At dawn, both were found dead beside the hearth, their hands intertwined. The goblet lay between them, still half full.
To this day, travelers say that on stormy nights, the windows of Elendel Castle glow faintly, as if two spirits still drink together, trapped forever by their forbidden desire. Sir Cedric of Valmont was a knight of noble blood, devoted to honor and God. But when he met Althea, a healer accused of witchcraft, his faith faltered. She lived alone in the woods, feared by the townsfolk for her knowledge of herbs and spells. Yet her eyes held a sorrow that drew him in like a curse. Against every law, Cedric visited her often, bringing gifts and company. Their friendship turned to love, a love forbidden by both church and crown. But when a plague struck the village, the people blamed Althea. Soldiers were sent to burn her cottage and drag her before the king. Desperate, she turned to dark magic to escape. "Drink this," she told Cedric, handing him a cup of potion. "We can run away together forever." But the potion was poison, designed to end their mortal suffering and bind their souls beyond life.
Cedric hesitated, then drank it without question. She followed him
Into death. Their bodies found beside the fire, their hands entwined.
The villagers claimed to hear whispers in the forest 4 years after the echo of vows never broken. Thus ended the tale of the knight who loved a witch, a love pure enough to defy heaven, yet doomed enough to invite hell. The feast of Count Marius was known throughout the kingdom for its splendor. Golden chandelier musical flutes and fountains that poured red wine instead of water. But on one winter's night, his celebration became his undoing. Marius had long courted Lady Sienna, a widow with a reputation for tragedy. She had lost 2 husbands under strange circumstances, both after nights of celebration. Still, Marius, blinded by love, ignored the whispers. He promised her wealth, title, and devotion. She smiled sweetly, her dark eyes gleaming with something unspoken. During the feast, she handed him a crystal goblet. "To our eternal love," she said. He drank deeply, his laughter echoing through the hall, until it stopped. Moments later, he collapsed, clutching his chest. The crowd screamed, servants rushed, but Sienna only wept quietly, whispering, "It's better this way." The wine had been laced with wolfsbane, a toxin she had prepared herself. When the guards came for her, she too drank from the same bottle, dying with a calm smile. Her last words? "He would have betrayed me, as they all do." From that night onward, no nobleman dared drink from a woman's hand at a feast. The tale was told in hushed tones, as tears, lies, and deadly wine. In the shimmering court of Versailles long before its fall, Lady Colette was known for her intoxicating fragrance, a scent so alluring that men followed her like moths to flame. But few knew the truth behind her perfume. It was her weapon. Colette had been the secret lover of Marquis Dorian, a man whose ambition rivaled the king's. When Dorian betrayed her for another woman, her love curdled into fury. She turned to an apothecary and demanded a perfume unlike any other one, mixed with a rare toxin from the Far East, capable of killing with mere breath. She returned to court dazzling and calm. When Dorian approached her at a masquerade ball, she smiled, leaned close, and whispered, "Do you still find my scent irresistible?" Within moments, he began to choke, his skin turning gray as dancers spun around them, unaware of his silent death. She kissed his cheek as he fell, leaving no trace but the faint scent of roses and decay. Days later, Colette disappeared, her chambers empty, her perfume bottles shattered on the floor. Some said she fled the kingdom. Others swore her spirit lingered, the scent of her vengeance still drifting through palace halls. They called her fragrance the lady's perfume of death. The kingdom of Altoria glittered with elegance, but its beauty was rotting beneath the surface. Queen Seraphine, admired for her grace, hid a heart filled with loneliness. Her husband, King Theobald, loved another Lady Irina, a courtesan whose laughter was said to heal even the coldest heart.
When Seraphine discovered the affair, she did not rage.
Instead, she smiled, her silence far more dangerous than any blade. She invited Irina to dine at the palace, praising her beauty before the court. During the feast, she presented a bowl of ripe, glistening peaches, a rare delicacy in winter. What none knew was that their skins had been soaked in a tincture of mercury. Irina ate with delight. Hours later, her skin turned pale, her breathing shallow. The king wept beside her as she died, never suspecting the hand that caused it. Days later, he too fell ill. The queen had shared his bed, her lips and skin still tainted with the same poison. Within a week, both were buried side by side. Queen Seraphine wore white to their funeral, her face serene, her heart blackened beyond redemption. The courtiers whispered of her beauty and her crimes, of how even the purest fruit could hide the taste of death. Thus the legend spread of a royal affair gone rotten. Duchess Rosalind of Trevennes had everything, wealth, beauty, and a husband devoted to her. Yet her heart belonged to another. Her husband's cousin, Lord a charming rogue whose silver tongue had undone many noble hearts. Their affair burned fiercely, hidden behind closed doors and midnight letters. But the Duchess soon discovered that Etienne was not faithful even to her. He had seduced her maid and several women of the court. Her love turned to rage, her pride demanding vengeance. Rosalind visited her apothecary under disguise, requesting a venom that killed slowly enough to watch the guilty suffer. She mixed it into a bottle of wine and delivered it herself, claiming it as a gift of affection. Within days, Etienne began to weaken. His laughter vanished, his charm turned to pain. Before he died, he realized what she had done and cursed her with his final breath. Consumed by guilt, the Duchess began wearing black and locked herself in her chambers. Servants whispered that she could still smell the venom on her hands, no matter how hard she washed them. When she was found dead months later, the same poison was discovered in her blood. On her desk lay a single note: "We both deserved this." And so lived the tale of the Duchess and the venomous secret in the medieval city of Love potions were sold in secret markets, where witches whispered of eternal devotion for the right price. Lady Ameline, desperate to win back the affection of her husband, a cold and distant lord, sought one such potion. The witch warned her, true love forced by magic always takes its payment in blood. But Ameline, blinded by heartache, paid with her family's heirloom ring and hurried home. She poured the potion into her husband's wine and watched as his eyes filled with sudden warmth. For the first time in years, he kissed her, spoke softly, and promised forever. But forever came quickly. Within days, he fell violently ill, his veins darkening like ink. The witch's words echoed in Ameline's mind as she realized her mistake. The potion had turned his love into obsession, his devotion into madness. In a fit of delirium, he attacked her, gasping for breath before dying in her arms. When the guards found her, Ameline had taken her own life beside him, a shattered vial still in her hand. The castle servants whispered for years that their ghosts still danced together on moonless nights bound by love potions and lethal promises. Countess Isadora of Merivale had given her husband, Lord Cedric, everything: loyalty, devotion, and an heir. But Cedric's heart belonged to another, a young singer who entertained the court with her haunting voice. When Isadora discovered their affair, she did not weep. She learned the arts of venom from her physician, pretending to cure the ill while mastering how to kill. When the time was right, she invited both her husband and his mistress to a private dinner to forgive and forget. The evening glowed with warmth, wine, and false laughter. The singer raised her cup first and never set it down again. Cedric screamed her name, only to feel the same poison burning through his blood moments later.
The Countess watched them die in silence, her eyes shining with tears that were half sorrow, half satisfaction.
She confessed everything before the court the next day, not out of guilt, but pride. When she was sentenced to death, she smiled and whispered, Justice has already been served. Her execution became legend, and her ghost was said to haunt her estate, her laughter echoing through the halls of Merivale. The world remembered her not as a victim, but as the betrayed countess's revenge. Prince Adrian of Eldenfall was a dreamer, young, idealistic, and hopelessly in love with a commoner named Leora. She was everything he was forbidden to have: poor, wild, and unafraid. Their love was secret, but pure, hidden beneath moonlight and soft promises. When the royal council discovered their affair, Leora was accused of witchcraft. Adrian, powerless to protect her, watched as she was sentenced to hang. In despair, he sought out an alchemist,
begging for a potion that could preserve love forever. The alchemist gave him a small vial of shimmering liquid.
"It will keep her with you always," he said, though his tone carried sorrow. That night, Adrian poured the potion into Leora's drink before she was taken away. She smiled, trusting him completely, but within moments, her eyes fluttered closed. Not dead, not alive, trapped in an eternal slumber. The prince kept her body in a glass coffin, guarded day and night, whispering poems to her still lips. Years passed, kingdoms fell, and Adrian grew old beside the woman who never woke.
When he finally died, the coffin cracked, and the scent of roses filled the room.
Those who entered swore they saw her eyes open just once. Their love became legend. The prince's lover who never slept again. In the mighty empire of Aurelia, King Edric and Queen Helena were the image of power and perfection. To the world, they were divine, golden-haired rulers blessed by God. But behind those gilded doors, love had long turned into loathing. The queen had discovered the king's countless betrayals, yet she played the loyal wife flawlessly. Her revenge, however, was crafted with patience. In her private chambers, she studied poisons from serpent oils to crushed gemstones until she found the perfect one, a toxin that caused slow madness before death. Each evening, she added a single drop to his favorite honeyed wine. Weeks passed before the king began losing his mind, shouting at shadows, accusing ghosts of conspiracy. His nobles whispered of curses, but Helena simply held his hand, smiling as he raved in delirium. When he finally died, the queen mourned beautifully, weeping before the court, dressed in purest white. None dared suspect her. She ruled alone for years, her heart colder than her crown. At her deathbed, she whispered, "No throne is truly golden, only gilded with the sins beneath it." And so history remembered their story not as a royal romance, but as a warning of dark hearts behind golden thrones. Queen Mirabelle of Rodern was known for her wisdom and composure, but her marriage to King Alistair was nothing more than a cage draped in jewels. The king flaunted his mistresses, while Mirabelle suffered in silence, until one night, her silence broke. When her husband fell ill after a hunting feast, the court blamed spoiled wine. Only the queen knew the truth. The cup that ended his life had been poured by her own hand. The poison, a concoction of crimson root and monkshood, worked swiftly, but Mirabelle's plan had a cruel twist. The chalice she used was shared among the king's 3 mistresses, all of whom fell ill and died within days. The kingdom mourned its monarch.
Mirabelle wore black and spoke softly of grief.
But behind her veil, she smiled. She had freed herself from humiliation and rule under a tyrant. Years later, a young servant girl confessed to finding the queen herself, weeping before the altar, whispering, "I thought I'd feel peace." The next morning, she was found lifeless, the same poisoned wine by her side. Thus the throne remained empty, and bards sang for centuries of the queen's cup of treachery, where love and vengeance shared the same sip. Lady Evelina, once the jewel of the royal court, had committed the ultimate sin. She had loved a condemned man. Her secret lover, Sir Rohan, had been accused of treason for plotting against the crown. Though innocent, his fate was sealed. When Evelina begged the king, her husband, for mercy, he refused, his pride wounded by her tears for another man. "Let him die," he decreed coldly. On the morning of the execution, Evelina visited Rowan in his cell. She wore a crimson gown, her hair loose, a sight that stole his breath, even in despair.
She pressed her lips to his, whispering, "My love will follow you." Then she left, silent as a ghost.
Moments before the blade fell,
Rohan collapsed.
the guards called it divine mercy, but they were wrong. The queen's kiss had been soaked in poison, swift, merciful, and final. That night, Evelina drank the remaining vial, lying down beside his body in the chapel. By dawn, both were gone, her lips still stained red.
Their tomb bore no names, only an engraving. One kiss, one death.
One love eternal. Thus lived the legend of a kiss before execution. Count Armand was a poet of charm and cunning. His love letters to Lady Eleanor were whispered about across kingdom's pages, soaked in words that burned like fire, but their passion was dangerous. Eleanor was married to Duke Renard, a jealous man known for cruelty. When the Duke intercepted one of Armand's letters, his rage knew no limits. He forced his wife to continue the correspondence, this time with a deadly twist. Every reply she sent was written with ink laced in powdered arsenic. Armand, unaware, kissed each letter before reading it, pressing it to his heart. Within weeks, he grew weak, his lips pale, his lungs burning. Yet he continued to write, believing her love was the cure, not the cause. When Eleanor discovered the truth that she had unknowingly become her lover's executioner, she went mad with grief. She wrote one final letter, signing it with her own poisoned ink, and sent it to her husband. By dawn, both were dead, the Duke and the Count, victims of their own deceit. Only Eleanor's final line remained legible. Our love was written not in ink, but in blood. And so the world remembered their tale as the poisoned letters of love. The grand banquet of Castle Corvain was the talk of every noble court, a celebration of power, wealth, and beauty. Lord Sebastian, its host, was a man of charm and indulgence, surrounded by women who adored him. Among them was Lady Lisette, a beauty known for her grace and quiet fire. Their affair began in shadows and ended in betrayal. When Sebastian cast her aside for a younger bride, Lisette's love turned venomous. She promised herself one last dance, one final feast. The night of his wedding banquet, Lisette arrived in shimmering gold, her beauty outshining the bride herself. She raised a cup in toast to love, sweet, fleeting, and fatal. The crowd cheered. Only Sebastian noticed her sly smile. Moments later, he began to cough, his laughter turning to gasps. The poison she had slipped into his wine spread swiftly through his veins. Panic erupted as he collapsed beside his new wife. Lisette stood calmly, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Now we are even," she whispered, before drinking from the same cup. Two lovers, one poison, one banquet. The music stopped, the torches dimmed, and the castle would forever be known as the site of death at the banquet of desire. In the court of Almar, Duchess Celeste was adored for her beauty. Her scent alone could intoxicate men. But behind her soft smiles hid a cunning vengeance. Her husband, Duke Roland, had taken a mistress, a young maiden named Is. Heartbroken but calm, Celeste devised a plan. She summoned the royal perfumer, demanding a scent so rare it could kill. He refused, terrified, but the Duchess promised gold and his silence. Weeks later, she held in her hands a crystal vial of perfume, laced with belladonna essence, invisible and sweet. At a royal gathering, Celeste gifted the perfume to Isolde, claiming it as a token of friendship. The girl, naive and flattered, wore it proudly. Within days, her beauty withered, her skin pale, her breath fading like a dying rose. When the Duke wept at her grave, Celeste watched from her balcony, the same perfume glimmering on her neck.
"Love," she whispered.
"Should never outlive loyalty," they said. The Duchess
Died years later, surrounded by roses, all dead from the soil she poisoned.
And so the legend of the Duchess and the deadly perfume lingered in the air, like a fragrance too dangerous to forget. Prince Lucien of Tharos was known for his beauty and cruelty alike. His court was filled with music, wine, and whispers, but none dared deny his charm. Then came Lady Rosalia,
a healer's daughter with eyes of emerald fire.
The prince fell fast, obsessed beyond reason. But Rosalia's heart belonged to another, a knight in the prince's own guard.
When Lucien discovered their affair, he smiled instead of raging. "Let there be a feast," he said.
That night, the hall glowed red with candlelight. Rosalia and her lover were seated beside the prince himself. He poured their wine, his tone gentle, almost loving. As they drank, their laughter turned to choking. The poison he had mixed from nightshade and crushed ruby did its work silently. When both collapsed, Lucien lifted his goblet high. "A toast," he whispered, "to eternal love." Then, in a gesture that shocked all, he drank the same wine.
By dawn, all three lay dead, their lips red as blood.
The crimson banquet was never cleared. It remained untouched, cursed. And in every legend since, they call it the Prince's Crimson Feast. Lady Adela was a mystery wrapped in silk. Every noble gathering saw her veiled in black lace, never revealing her face. Rumors said she had been scarred by fire, others claimed she hid a beauty too deadly to behold. But the truth was darker. Years ago, her husband, Lord Roderick, had disfigured her in a jealous rage after discovering her secret affair with a court musician. The man was executed, and Adela was left in silence and shame. She swore revenge. Disguised as a grieving widow, she learned the arts of poison from apothecaries and monks alike. When she returned to the castle, she offered her husband forgiveness and a goblet of mulled wine. As he drank, she removed her veil, revealing the scars he had given her. "Do you remember this face?" she hissed. His heart stopped before he could answer. Adela vanished into the night, her veil fluttering behind her like a dark spirit. Some say she became a wandering ghost, seen by those whose hearts are blackened by betrayal. Her story endures as a whisper in noble halls, the tale of the Lady of the Black Veil. In the kingdom of Saradine, marriage was a matter of power, not love. Princess Adira, pure-hearted and young, was wed to King Darius, a man twice her age, feared for his ambition. He promised her devotion, but his heart belonged to another, the queen's own handmaidens. When Leora discovered their secret, she didn't cry. She smiled. For 3 nights, she prayed to the old gods, asking for vengeance cloaked in beauty. Soon after, she presented Darius with a gift, a crown of silver vines set with rare red gemstones. He wore it proudly at the next feast, but within hours, blood began dripping down his forehead. The metal, laced with mercury and poison oak, was slowly killing him. As his flesh blistered and his breath failed, Leora whispered, "You vowed to love me until death. I merely kept your promise." Selene fled the castle in terror, never to return.
The cursed crown was buried with the king, and legend says it still bleeds under the moonlight.
Thus ended the tragic reign, known as the Crown of Broken Vows.
Brother Gabriel had taken vows of silence and purity.
But when Lady Seraphine came to the monastery to confess her sins, temptation took human form. Her beauty was divine, her sorrow intoxicating. She confessed of being trapped in a loveless marriage, beaten and scorned by her noble husband. Gabriel, pitying her, broke his silence. Their secret meetings grew into whispers, then into sin. But guilt consumed him. He sought to end it, to return to faith. Seraphine, furious at his rejection, swore he would never forget her. She brought him a vial, claiming it was holy wine to seal their farewell.
When Gabriel drank, he collapsed, his lips burning.
As he died, she kissed him, a kiss laced with the same poison. "Now we are bound in death," she whispered, as we could not be in life. They were buried in separate graves, but legends say each night their spirits meet under the chapel's moonlit glass, repeating the same fatal kiss. The monks called it blasphemy. The poets called it love. The world remembers it as the monks' forbidden kiss. The wedding of Lord Cassian and Lady Evelis was called the grandest in all of Eldoria gold music, and roses filled the hall.
Yet behind her veil, the bride's smile hid a storm of rage.
Evelis had been forced into this marriage, her true love a knight named Alden, executed under Cassian's command for defying his lord. The bride's silence during the ceremony was mistaken for modesty, only she knew it was vengeance. That night, she prepared a sweet honey cake for her new husband, laced with the same venom Cassian once used on Alden's blade. When he took the first bite, she kissed him tenderly, whispering, "Taste what you gave to love." By morning, the Lord was dead in his bed, his mouth blackened from poison.
Evelyn dressed herself in white again and walked to the chapel, her voice calm as she confessed.
"A wedding gift,"
She said,
"to the man who killed my heart." The priest buried her beside Cassian by royal command, but the roses planted above their graves never bloomed again. Thus, the villagers told their children, "Beware the beauty of the Venom Bride." Sir Tristan was a hero of the realm, noble, brave, and adored. Yet behind his armor, he harbored a forbidden passion for the queen herself. Their affair was whispered in the shadows, hidden beneath layers of loyalty and sin. But the king, cunning and cruel, discovered the truth. Instead of immediate execution, he devised a crueler punishment. He summoned Tristan and the queen for a final banquet of forgiveness. As they dined, the king poured their wine himself, a rare vintage from the royal cellars. But the queen, sensing danger, secretly switched her cup with his. She drank deeply, smiling in defiance. Moments later, her body went limp, her head falling into Tristan's arms. The king laughed, realizing his plan had turned upon itself. But Tristan, in despair, seized the goblet and drank what remained. "If death takes her, it takes me too." The king fled the hall, leaving their entwined bodies at the table. The servants found them at dawn, hands still clasped.
Their story was silenced by decree, but minstrels sang it in secret for generations, the ballad of the knight's last embrace.
In the northern keep of Caramir, Lady Margot lived in eternal luxury. Silks, gold, and flattery surrounded her. Yet none could satisfy her hunger for control. When her husband, Lord Percival, began to grow weary of her cold heart, she took a lover, the court alchemist. But when rumors reached the Lord's ears, his rage was merciless. He ordered the alchemist drowned in mercury, his body entombed in the castle crypt. Margot wept publicly, yet swore quietly that she would share her table with death itself before forgiving him. Months later, she invited her husband to a private supper. The meal was exquisite: roasted quail, rare wine, candied fruit. She ate first, proving the food harmless. He followed, relieved. Only when he began to tremble did she reveal the truth. The poison had been baked into the glaze of his silver plate.
As he died, she smiled faintly.
"Now we dine together, my love." When the servants entered, they found both husband and wife dead, her wine glass half empty, her expression peaceful. The castle was later abandoned, haunted by whispers of the lady who dined with death. Deep within the estate of Baroness Morel lay a hidden garden, a place of moonlit beauty, where roses grew from soil mixed with strange powders. It was said the Baroness herself tended it, her hands always gloved, her eyes always cold. Few knew the truth. Each flower was fed with the ashes of her lovers. Men who entered her heart never left alive. Her latest admirer, Lord Emmerich, believed himself different, charming, poetic, and cunning.
He promised her love beyond wealth, devotion beyond duty.
Morel smiled and led him to her secret garden, offering him wine brewed from its blossoms. He drank deeply, savoring its sweetness until pain bloomed in his chest. She watched quietly as he fell among the roses.
"Now,"
she whispered,
"you'll bloom for me forever."
when the Baroness herself died years later.
The garden was found thriving unnaturally, crimson flowers, their scent intoxicating and deadly. Those who dared approach claimed to hear whispers of names carried on the wind. Thus the peasants named it the Forbidden Garden, where love's beauty turned to death's perfume. Lady Isadora's life was marked by tragedy. Her husband, Lord Renong, had been slain in battle, betrayed by his closest friend, Sir Gaaric. Alone and embittered, Isadora vowed vengeance, not through sword, but through seduction. She invited Garrick to her estate, claiming forgiveness and friendship. Her charm disarmed him. Her sorrow moved him. Within weeks, he was utterly captivated. One evening, she prepared a feast in his honor. Every dish, laced with wolfsbane and nightshade, she dined with him, laughing softly, matching him, sip for sip.
When the poison began its cruel
Work, Garrick collapsed, gasping.
Isadora knelt beside him, her eyes glowing with fury.
You took my love's life. Now take his death. But before dawn, she too was found lifeless beside him, her goblet empty. The servants whispered she had drunk the poison willingly, fulfilling her vow. Upon her tomb were carved the words, my blood for his, my heart for none. Her name became legend, the tragic beauty who sealed her vengeance with death.
The bards called her story the widow's blood oath.